views expressed on this episode of My Take Radio do not reflect the views, thoughts, or feelings of the My Take Radio staff, My Take Radio advertisers, or My Take Radio content partners. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
This coverage is live and uncensored, so if you have any small children present, you may want to have them leave the room.
What's up, guys? My Take Radio episode 340, broadcasting live Wednesday, March 9th, 2016. I'm your host, Rich, and our call-in number is 347-324-3541. Again, that call-in number 347-324-3541. If this is your first time tuning into My Take Radio is a variety show covering mixed martial arts, professional wrestling, gaming, and entertainment. On Wednesday nights, we cover gaming. No, we don't. On Wednesday nights, we cover MMA and wrestling. And on Thursday nights, we cover gaming and entertainment. We broadcast live starting usually at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Had to start a little late today, which I'll get into in a few minutes. Usually, like I said, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. And you can watch, listen, and participate in the live show chat by heading over to mtrlive.com. This show is simulcast on Vaughn Live, Twitch, YouTube Live, and a host of other video services when they decide to work. Audio is simulcast on Mixlr as well as also on Blog Talk Radio. So if you're listening via Mixlr or Blog Talk Radio, you can enjoy the show that way. Video archives are available on our two YouTube channels, My Take Radio TV and Official Rageworks. Audio can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio, usually within 24 to 48 hours of broadcasting. Like I said, MTR Live is the best way to enjoy the show. We have multiple video players on there, plus an audio-only solution. We did make some slight adjustments to the live page, so there are tabs up top that outline all the different players, and you can listen via Mixlr, choose whichever you wish, and mute the rest, so that way you don't have any echoes or overlap. All right, so last week, I owed you guys a gaming and entertainment edition of MTR, which fell by the wayside for a couple of reasons. When we wrapped up the show Wednesday night, about 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock, as I was editing the video for that show, my internet went down, and, we got in touch with Fios, who is our provider, explained to them the situation, but as it turns out, it was a lot more than just resetting the router and unplugging a couple of things. Turns out that it was a host of issues, starting with a splitter that came into my house, along with a networking switch as well. They ended up fixing the splitter, and as a result of fixing the splitter, we determined that there was also a problem with the networking switch. We didn't get to restore internet service at Rageworks HQ until late Sunday evening, and at that point, between releasing last week's episode, which I had contemplated scrapping, but decided to release it along with episodes of TRSS, the regular season sportscast special episode, which I'm still working on, Black is the New Black. We were definitely behind the 8 ball going into the show this week. Lots going on. We are working on some enhancements on RageWorks.net as well to improve everyone's experience. Some of you guys have reached out with, certain suggestions and critiques that we are going to be applying for the next incarnation of Rageworks. Before I forget, just realized my phone is not muted. So don't want that going off during the show tonight. Anyway, so, we managed to get everything up and running. We are working on making some improvements on the site. We're continuing to put out content from Toy Fair 2016. I know that Jay broke down the House of Glory show on his last episode of TRSS. I know that he has a special show that he's working on with Josie's Boy, which we're going to be posting as well, just as a tester for you guys to see if you guys are into it or not. Of course, definitely feel free to reach out to Jay on social media or via the Rageworks fan page or group page and let him know what you think when we release it. All right, so for this week's episode, we got lots to discuss. Obviously, we're going to get into UFC 196 and the fallout from that card, both for the winners and the losers. We're also going to get into the week's MMA news, lots of stuff going on there, including Wanderlei Silva participating in a tag team MMA match. You guys are definitely not going to want to miss that. We got a Dada 5000 update. We have the MMA news of the week, of course. On the wrestling side, we are going to get into Raw. I am going to touch a little bit on WWE Roadblock and the wrestling news of the week. There was also a spoiler with regards to the WWE Hall of Famers, which are being finalized for this year's Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We will get into that. And as always, I will take your calls, 347-324-3541. If you want to participate, hit option 1. And you can also use that number and listen to the show that way. Just don't hit option 1. And you can listen to the show through your Bluetooth headset or through your Bluetooth speakers or in your car, whichever works best for you. You can also do that with the Mixlr app if you have it for iOS or Android devices as well. So, with that said, let's get this ball rolling and jump into the week's MMA news because, man, oh man, there's definitely lots to cover. Let's get to it. I want to start with UFC 196 only because that's going to be the bigger part of tonight's show. Not going to jump around and go down the entire fight card, obviously. As usual, we're going to try and pick and choose some fights that we want to address. I did want to obviously discuss, and this is something that, many people were on the fence about, and I want to talk about the women's bantamweight title fight. We got to watch the fight here at the house. Myself, Andrea, Jimbo Slice came through, and we saw the women's bout and, of course, the main event. I did see the rest of the card on replay, but I do want to, not to say that the other fights weren't memorable, but the bulk of the conversation this evening is going to center on the main event and co-main event because there's so much going on, both leading up to the fight, during the fight, and after the fight, that we really can't ignore so many different facets of what happened. But I want to start with the women's bantamweight fight for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Holly Holm came in. Many people expected her to come in and walk through Miesha Tate. Fight between both ladies. They definitely went the distance. And it really was a good back and forth brawl between both ladies. Obviously, Miesha Tate relying on her wrestling and definitely trying to counterpunch as best as she could against Holly Holm. Holly Holm definitely had some really, really solid striking in the first round. With the second round, Miesha started to gain some momentum, started to find her range, open up, get comfortable. But then in round 3, Holly Holm again went back into it and started relying on her bread and butter, which is her striking. And I got to say that I really, and I'll be 100% honest in saying it, I did not expect the fight to be as competitive as it was. Considering how easily Miesha Tate was dispatched by Ronda Rousey on numerous occasions, compounded with the fact that Holly Holm easily dispatched Ronda, I felt that Holly Holm was definitely the favorite going into this fight, at least for me. Again, not taking anything away from Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate has been there before, knows how to deal with the pressures that are associated with being in a title fight. But it's just one of those things where you get so used to seeing someone lose, especially in such, dominant fashion, that it's kind of hard to presume that they're going to end up taking the victory, on their what's essentially their third. I want to say it's their fourth title fight, maybe their third. But the thing that gets me is going into this fight, Miesha Tate knew what she had to do going in there. She had really solid strategy. As the fight went into the deeper rounds, Miesha Tate really started to put pressure on Holly Holm. And when round 5 started, Miesha Tate came out extremely aggressive. And, Holly Holm was working the jab, a couple of the kicks, especially. She was working the thigh kick quite a bit. And, the thing is, Holly Holm definitely had good takedown defense, at least as best as it was. And, what ended up happening was that she ended up going for a side kick, at which point Miesha Tate went into a clinch position and then spun around, took her back, and at that point, she got a hook in, she got the other hook in, and when Holm flipped forward, Tate held on and ended up securing a choke 3 minutes, 30 seconds in round 5 to win via rear naked choke for Miesha Tate. It really was a masterful performance, especially because Miesha Tate understood going into this fight, especially as we went into the later rounds, that the decision could have favored the champion. So she really had to dispatch Holly Holm very, very quickly. And because of that, I think that she paced herself adequately. She really put in the work, and she demonstrated that she is capable of not only weathering the storm of a very powerful striker, but also taking some very, very smart, calculated risks with regards to how she was going to approach that. I mean, she definitely had stellar cardio going into the later rounds. What the hell is that? Oh, God. What an abysmal noise that was. Anyway, as I was saying, the thing that got... I didn't expect Miesha Tate to be as... I want to say calculating, only because she definitely had the grappling advantage going in, and I felt that she was going to utilize that more. She didn't. She mixed it up quite a bit. Holly, obviously a devastating loss for her, and Dana White has already kind of elaborated on the fact that it's going to be Miesha and Ronda once again. But the thing that gets me, and Jimbo Slice said the same thing when we were discussing it, as did Andrea and countless other people that I discussed the fight with, they said that, Miesha Tate shouldn't fight Ronda next. Ronda should fight Holly Holm, and the winner fights Miesha Tate, and Miesha Tate should have a new opponent for whatever it's going to be, UFC 199, UFC. Obviously, UFC 200 is the target. Now, here's a couple of things. And, Val says still hate Miesha. Here's the thing. If you go to UFC 200 and it's Miesha Tate and Ronda, okay, of course people are going to want to see that, and people are going to presume that Ronda's going to walk through Miesha Tate, win the belt, and then or maybe her and Holly Holm will square off. But the thing is that the narrative and the story that's tied to these two women is a story that people just don't really care about. Because I'll be honest, when Ronda and Miesha Tate are building a fight, Ronda reverts to bitch mode, just being extra vicious, in exchanges with Miesha Tate, and Miesha Tate tries to keep up, and it's while it's okay to see, it just doesn't feel right. It's a different type of buildup versus a buildup of skill. When Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey were approaching their fight, Obviously, Ronda was trying to be more the aggressor going in. Holly Holm, she definitely dialed it in at the weigh-ins and probably got in Ronda's head a little bit. And I think that's one of those things that for a fighter like Ronda, who always comes in looking extra dominant, going into a fight with Miesha Tate, she's gonna assert that dominance in terms of the build, which is just gonna make it a question of, is everyone gonna tune in to see Ronda beat Miesha and get the belt back, or are people genuinely gonna tune in to see a legitimate title fight? It's a very it's a very awkward situation, not only for the women involved, but also for the UFC. Obviously, they want to get Ronda in there for UFC 200, and Dana White has been very vocal about getting her in there. But he's also kind of thrown it out there that, Ronda's worked very hard, and, she needs a break, and she's entitled to come back whenever she wants. All the usual Dana White shill maneuvers that we know Dana White for. Now, the way I see it, and this is from a legitimate perspective, statistically, and just from an MMA math perspective, let me rephrase that, Ronda should fight Holly Holm. Winner fights Miesha Tate. Now, the problem is that we don't have that many events until UFC 200. You want to make UFC 200 a marquee event. You want all the titles defended, and you want to put on the most exciting, stellar fights possible. Number one, because you want to make a fuckload of money. Number two, you want to reinforce the fact that, UFC 100 was special. UFC 200 is going to be even more amazing. And you're going to need the fights that are going to get not only the diehards interested in tuning in, but the casual fans as well. Because obviously, the casual fans, your whole goal is to convert them to longtime fans. I mean, would I love to see Ronda and Holly Holm square off beforehand with the winner fighting Miesha Tate at UFC 200? Absolutely. Now, again, we don't really know the mindset that Ronda Rousey is in. When she was notified that Miesha Tate won, she wasn't even watching the fight. She was, I believe, at an Evolve wrestling event or at a wrestling event. Evolve may be correct, it may not. But in any case, she said, time to get back to work. Now, a lot of people took that as, Ronda took the time off because she didn't want to go back to fight Holly Holm, but she's going to jump at the chance to come back and fight Miesha Tate because it's quote-unquote an easy fight. I think that it's a different ball game now. I think Miesha Tate's confidence level is at an all-time high, defeating the woman who dispatched Ronda Rousey. I don't think it's going to be as much of a cakewalk as Ronda would like to think going into this fight. I'm sure I'm mistaken, but I just feel that is definitely not going to be what the outcome is going to be if they fight once again. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it's a different ball game, both from a mental perspective for Ronda, but also from a momentum perspective for Miesha Tate. I mean, there's a different narrative at play here. Ronda is, I don't want to say she's the wounded animal, but she's definitely not in the same, killer instinct mindset that she was previously. And of course, there's a lot of psychological stuff at play, which, she's addressed in countless interviews, and many fighters have made it a point to reference as of late. But the way I see it is, if you're going to fight, you're going to fight one way or the other. There should be no excuses. It should be two healthy, complete athletes going in there to prove who's better. It shouldn't be a question of, psychologically I'm in it or not in it. It really, at that point, doesn't matter. When that cage door closes, it's you and the opponent. Training camps don't mean anything. None of that matters. The fact is that Ronda to fight Miesha Tate again because psychologically she feels it is the easier fight. Like Jimbo Slice just said, Ronda has Miesha's card. It's true. I think Ronda feels that it's an easier way to get her belt back and get to the top. But given her performance against Holly Holm, I just don't feel the same way as I did going into this. I think it's a different Miesha Tate, And honestly, it's a different Ronda Rousey. And sure, she may come in, she may beat Miesha again and get her belt back. But the fight that matters right now is her avenging the loss against Holly Holm. As much as people want to see Ronda be champion, I have to agree with many of the people I've discussed these last couple of months with, and they we all say the same thing. She needs to fight Holly Holm. She needs to beat Holly Holm, and that's that. Period. Taking the path of quote unquote least resistance and fighting Miesha Tate. While yes, it may get her the gold quicker, it just doesn't come off as the right course of action. But then again, I'm a guy behind a microphone. The fuck do I know? But either way you slice it, I'm excited to see where this division goes. I mean, there's a lot of talented women in this division, a lot of dangerous women. You still got Kat Zingano out there trying to get herself back into title contention, which obviously she is owed a title opportunity. You got the Miesha Tate, Holly Holm narrative that's still playing out, which, Holly Holm has already been very verbal about fighting Miesha Tate again as soon as possible. She wants to get in there as soon as possible and fight her again. Who maybe we'll get the rematch before that, and the winner fights Ronda at UFC 200. I think that at the end of the day, you're gonna need the women's bantamweight title defended at UFC 200. It's just a matter of choosing which woman is gonna face Miesha Tate for that card, and how much money is it going to take to get Ronda to come out of her self-imposed exile to get into the cage with Miesha Tate? Because yes, she said, it's time to get back to work, or whatever she said to Dana White. But again, there's a different psychology there, and I'm curious to see how it's going to pan out. So the next couple of weeks definitely are going to be very, very interesting. A couple of comments from the chat. Val says, Miesha probably requested Ronda as her next opponent to prove she's finally that Ronda broke her arm. Val adds, I don't think it'll be that easy, especially since before Holly, Miesha came real close. And I hate Miesha, but her new camp definitely brought her game up. I can agree with what Val said. Her camp is definitely a lot better. A lot of improvements were shown in this fight, but the real question is, the mental. You could do as many training camps as you want, hit the bag, be effective, get all your takedowns, do what you got to do. But the mental portion is where we're going to see, who is the most dominant female in that division. All right, so let's get into this welterweight bout. Of course, Conor McGregor coming in, going up 2 weight classes to face Stockton's own Nate Diaz. An incredible amount of buildup in a short amount of time led to a very, very, very gutsy performance. And the thing is, I see Jimbo Slice. What I don't understand is why Cyborg is not in the mix or in the hunt. You know what? I'll answer that. Couple of reasons. Cyborg did not want to fight at the 140-pound weight class. She originally wanted to fight Ronda at the, Cyborg said she couldn't make 135. She wanted to do a fight at 140. Ronda Rousey said that she's the champion, and she's the champion at 135, and Cyborg can make 135. Now, the thing is that Cyborg was going to do a cut to 135 and take a fight in Invicta at 135, and then if she was able to do the cut and win her fight, she was going to fight Ronda, and they were going to do the super fight. That fight is still out there. There's still an opportunity. I mean, Invicta is part of the UFC to a point, and and it's been said that Cyborg has a UFC contract, and because of that, she definitely has a claim to fight in the UFC. The problem is that making the weight is a big issue. On top of the fact that, there's always that concern that if they set up the fight and she doesn't make weight, or, something goes wrong, or maybe, she tests positive for any juice, there's that as well. I mean, she's been clean. She's been tested randomly for her last couple of fights, and it's been fine. But I definitely agree that Cyborg has a case to make as well in terms of fighting for the title. But the problem is Cyborg needs to make that 135-pound weight limit, and given her frame and the quote-unquote inability to make the weight consistently, I think the UFC is just afraid of getting egg on their face if they opt to go that route. I mean, I agree. Cyborg has a very strong case to fight. Holly Holm deserves a rematch. Ronda deserves a rematch with Holly Holm. Like I said, it's a very, very interesting time. That's for damn sure. Going into the welterweight bout, like I said, Nate Diaz taking the fight on short notice. Really stepped it up in 10 days and got people interested. Everybody was talking shit. There were near melees at every press conference between McGregor and Diaz, and it just continued. I am not acknowledging that. The thing is, Nate Diaz did a masterful job of building interest for this fight on short notice, as did Conor McGregor. The fight itself, Diaz came in 3 inches taller, had a 2-inch reach on McGregor. McGregor looked really good. Definitely good boxing, good striking on his part, but Diaz was working that Stockton slap. And it's funny because the week prior when I was talking about this fight, I said that Nate Diaz's Stockton slap has never been known to have any pop or, knock anyone out. But it seems that the added weight definitely helped. It definitely stung McGregor a little bit, especially in that second round. Diaz fought very smart, used the striking to set up a takedown, and from there into a rear naked choke. It was really masterful jiu-jitsu from Nate Diaz. It was, a solid performance from McGregor, and Nate Diaz is the man. Nate Diaz can write his own fucking ticket, based on the fact that he defeated the remaining golden boy of the UFC. Now, this is where we're going to get into some stuff that people I'm sure are going to message me and be annoyed about. I like Conor McGregor. He is an exciting fighter. He is great for the sport. He gets people interested. He gets people hype. He gets people involved. Love him or hate him, he does a great job. I'm also a fan of the Diaz brothers. I've talked about that on numerous shows. I enjoy the tenacity and just the way that they present themselves. It's like they come in, they punch the clock, they fuck you up, and they leave. And sometimes, yes, they're head cases, they're interesting individuals, they're polarizing to many fans. But the fact is that the Diaz brothers are martial artists. They are, they're a throwback. They're a throwback to the fighters of old that would come in. They're not there to be role models. They're not there to sell T-shirts. They're there to fuck people up, get money, and that's it. And yes, there is a level of showmanship that is there, but I think that for many fighters, that level of showmanship is either ingrained in their DNA or not. It's something you cannot manufacture. You can't manufacture 209. You can't manufacture Stockton. You can't manufacture that chip on the shoulder, that take no prisoners attitude, that, you're going to punch me in the face, I'm going to give you the finger, and then I'm going to punch you in the face twice. You can't create that, with the UFC marketing machine. The same thing with Conor McGregor. Even though Conor McGregor wears the fancy suits and, wears the snakeskin loafers, you can't fake that shit. The guy knows how to sell fights. The guy knows how to go out there and be entertaining. It's we joke about this, off air, that the UFC is more like WWE than people would like to admit. And it's true. The UFC has their prized fighters that they want to manufacture into being these larger than life personas that are able to transcend mainstream appeal and become something bigger, something better. And that's right. There's definitely a bright side to that with guys like Conor McGregor, with guys like GSP, even John Jones, or Chael at one point when Chael was there, Anderson Silva. Some of these guys, they don't need the marketing hype behind them because they can sell the fights either based on ability or based on trash talking. When it comes to this particular fight between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, there were no losers. I'll be honest, and I'll tell you why. There were no losers. For Conor McGregor, it was an opportunity to show that he was willing to go to great lengths to fight anyone, anytime, any place, anywhere, and cement his place in history. For Nate Diaz, it was an opportunity to show that he's more than just Nick Diaz's little brother or the guy with the chip on his shoulder. He showed that there's more to him, and even to the Cesar Gracie camp, there's more to that camp than just, weed and middle fingers and trash talking. There's more to it. And like I said, there were no real losers in this fight. Yes, Conor McGregor lost. Okay, he lost. Still champion, still made a fuckload of money. Went up 2 weight classes, took it in stride, delivered some really awesome post-fight commentary across various channels. He gave Nate his due, he accepted his loss, and he kept it moving. For Nate Diaz, this was also an amazing opportunity. He got himself a money fight, made a shitload of it, made a shitload of money. Not more than Conor McGregor, and I'll get into that, but still a nice amount of money. And he put himself on the map. He wrote his own ticket. It wasn't the UFC hype machine. It was middle fingers and telling people to go fuck themselves that made people invested in Nate Diaz going in. The Diaz brothers are scrappy dudes, and there's so many opportunities right now. People are talking about Nate Diaz and Robbie Lawler, something that people weren't even talking about 3 weeks ago. Hell, the people weren't even talking about it 3 months ago. There's rumors of GSP coming back at UFC 200, and people are saying maybe Nate Diaz and GSP, since Nick Diaz obviously is still suspended. There's so many scenarios now after the outcome of this fight that it makes you look at it and really ask yourself, there were no losers. Obviously there was in terms of records, but in terms of just the future, Nate Diaz wrote his own ticket. Conor McGregor still has a lot of fights at 145 he can handle, and he can still do the super fight with Rafael Dos Anjos if he decides to. But think about it. Frankie Edgar's waiting down there. Jose Aldo is waiting down there. Hell, Jose Aldo's been on social media talking about taking the fight at UFC 200 and getting his rematch then. And it's funny because, McGregor was like, dude, you're the first guy that said you would fight anytime, any place, anywhere. And when you got the phone call, you didn't step up. So, there was obviously some shit talking thrown Jose Aldo's way. And you could make a case for that, he's right, he's wrong. For me personally, I think that Jose Aldo should have jumped on that opportunity, come in, especially with McGregor not prepared to fight him at this point. Maybe he would have been the one to upset and redeem himself. But it's a scenario we may never know. But again, this was a great coming out party for Nate Diaz and for Stockton and for that camp. Really, they outdid themselves in terms of execution, build-up, and even afterwards. Like I said, this guy, Nate Diaz, is now being looked at as a potential challenger for Robbie Lawler at 170. And, excuse me, not 170, 185. No, 170, sorry, 170. 185 is Luke Rockhold. Again, it creates a lot of compelling matchups at 170 for Nate Diaz. Hell, a fight between Nate and GSP, again, a lot of great storytelling there. GSP defeated his brother. The Diaz brothers aren't fans of GSP. There's an incredible amount of storytelling there. You have a legend, a bona fide Hall of Famer stepping in, fighting Nate Diaz. There's a lot of money there. UFC 200 is huge. It's crazy. It's crazy. Jimbo Slice says, lost all respect for Aldo. He said he should shut the fuck up. What's funny? You're not the only person to say that. A lot of people were like, Jose Aldo dictated a lot of terms when he fought Conor McGregor, talked a lot about we can fight wherever, we can fight whenever. And, when the phone rang, he was quote unquote out of shape. I don't know what that means, but he was out of shape. Val says casuals actually thought Conor was dominating because he made Nate bleed. You know what the funny thing was? Conor McGregor had really good striking, and he was throwing out a lot of power. He was throwing some really good power shots. They just, Nate Diaz is a guy who's been in the cage for a long time. He ate those shots like nothing. And at the end of the day, it was all about executing. And don't get me wrong, McGregor had a solid game plan going in. Nate Diaz just had a better plan. That's all. Anyway, let's get into the other MMA news. I wanna definitely talk about Raw. I see you guys are popping in the chat. If you guys see my eyes shifting back and forth, I got these new widescreen monitors. So, I got the chat on one window and the notes on another, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, let's talk about fight bonuses. $50,000 bonuses were handed out. Nate Diaz took a $50,000 bonus. Miesha Tate took a $50,000 performance bonus. Fight of the night honors, of course, went to Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor. The Nevada State Athletic Commission released the salaries for UFC 196. The entire payroll for the card was $2,871,000. MMA Junkie published that. One thing to note, that the figures I'm about to give you guys do not include deductions for insurance, licenses, or taxes. They also don't include money paid by sponsors, including Reebok sponsorship pay or any locker room or discretionary bonuses that the UFC sometimes pay. These are raw numbers. All right, so for the Nate Diaz-Conor McGregor fight, Nate Diaz made $500,000. Conor McGregor walked away from that fight on the losing end, but still made $1 million. Miesha Tate walked away with $92,000, which included a $46,000 win bonus, and she defeated Holly Holm, who made $500,000 going into that fight. Ilir Latifi made $50,000. That included his $25,000 win bonus against Gia Vellante. Corey Anderson, who took on Tom Lawler, Anderson walked away with $40,000. That included a $20,000 win bonus to Tom Lawler's $28,000. Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko was the opener for the main event, for the main card. Amanda Nunes walked out with $56,000. That included a $28,000 win bonus. Shevchenko walked out with $14,000. CR the Killer took on Brandon Thatch. CR walked out with $38,000. That included a $19,000 win bonus. Brandon Thatch walked out with $22,000. Couple of things. Even though we talk about fighter pay quite a bit on this show, the difference between the pay that boxers are getting and mixed martial artists are getting is insane. Jimbo Slice and I, him being a boxing aficionado, I've picked up a little bit. I've learned a little bit about the sport, just, hearing him talk about it and, acknowledging certain fighters. And I see certain things, but the numbers that are coming out of boxing in comparison to what mixed martial artists are getting are so far off. And I mean, that's not to say that mixed martial artists don't deserve better pay, but when you're talking about guys like Conor McGregor walking out with $1 million and everybody's just like, oh my God, $1 million, you're talking about guys, and Jimbo Slice brought this to my attention, lower tier boxers are walking out with that money, if not more. Again, I don't want to misspeak, because I don't know boxing that well, but I've seen some boxing salaries and it's nothing compared to what the UFC makes. And on top of that, what Val said, there's also pay-per-view residuals as well. Depending on the deals, there are some mixed martial artists that have, pay-per-view cuts in their contract. I believe John Jones was one, GSP was one, Anderson Silva might have been another. Again, those are special types of deals that are in place. But again, you got to look at that. Nate Diaz walked out of that fight with $500,000 to Conor McGregor's $1 million. That's not to say that that it's the most money Nate Diaz has seen, but it's definitely a shitload of money. That's not even counting, Reebok sponsorship pay, side sponsorships that Nate Diaz has and Conor McGregor has. These guys, they came away with a lot of money. Obviously, you still got to pay your training camp, your partners, insurance, taxes, et cetera, but still, there was a lot of money to be made. And I think that in a situation like this with Nate Diaz, where he took the fight on short notice, the money definitely needs to be addressed with regards to how much he's been paid, because it's been something that has been an issue with the Diaz camp for quite some time. So we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on that in the coming weeks. So I did want to talk about, Conor McGregor. He put out a statement on Instagram with regards to his loss to Nate Diaz. He said, "I stormed in, I put it all on the line, I took a shot and I missed. I will never apologize for taking a shot. Shit happens. I'll take this loss like a man. I will not shy away from it. I will not change who I am. If another champion goes up 2 weights, let me know. If you're tired of me talking money, take a nap. I'll still be here when you wake up with the highest pay-per-view and the highest gate, still talking multiple 7s. He went on to add, "Thank you to the true support and fuck the hate that came out of the woodwork. I love it all. It's still steak for breakfast. I've been here many times in my life in some form or another. I'll eat it all and come back stronger." He went on to add, "Aldo, you are a pussy. Dos Anjos, you are a pussy. When the history books are written, I showed up. You showed up on Twitter. To the fans, never shy away from challenges. Never run from adversity. Face yourself head on. Nate, I will see you again." Definitely, again, really, really powerful words out of Conor McGregor. Powerful words out of Nate Diaz as well. Nate Diaz silencing all the critics, silencing all the quote-unquote haters going in. Like I said, it was a very, very impactful night for both fighters, and it's going to be exciting to watch as UFC 200 starts to take shape. Val said, Nate said he was supposed to get another $500,000 if he won. You never know, Val. I mean, again, I'm talking about the amounts I just gave you guys are amounts published by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Credit to MMA Junkie for that. But there's definitely other money there, discretionary bonuses, etc. So there may be another 500,000 out there. Like I said, the numbers I got are raw numbers without those other numbers being considered. Again, if I hear anything else, I will definitely let you guys know. According to Combate, sources in the UFC are close to putting together Anderson Silva versus either Gegard Mousasi or Tim Kennedy for his next fight, which could take place at UFC 198. Now, honestly, Anderson Silva would probably fare better and generate more interest fighting Gegard Mousasi, even though he's incredibly boring. Not to take anything away from Tim Kennedy, but again, Anderson, I still stand by the fact that you could do an Anderson Silva GSP fight for UFC 200 if GSP is really interested in fighting. I mean, there's no belts on the line, but it's still a fight that can generate a lot of interest. You can compete. You can make the fight at 185. You can make the fight at 170, whichever is easier. But I definitely think that if you're going to do something special with Anderson Silva, considering that regardless of what his contract states, I feel that his career is on a very, very limited thread, that I would try and maximize the fights that I can get out of a guy like Anderson Silva and stop, unless you're trying to groom him for another title run, maybe he wants to take those big fights. A fight with GSP would be good. A rematch with Nick Diaz would be good. Opportunities like that would definitely get people talking versus putting him in there with a guy like Gegard Mousasi or a guy like Tim Kennedy. Again, not to take anything away from either of those guys, but we are looking at a guy who is still going to be a UFC Hall of Famer and who is running on a very, very borrowed clock. We'll see what happens. Either opponent, I'm sure, is going to generate some buzz, but if you're trying to do something big with Anderson Silva, I would probably save it for UFC 200 versus some sort of throwaway fight at UFC 198 or 99. We'll see what happens. The UFC is heading to Croatia in April, and UFC Fight Night 86 has taken it's become quite a solid card over the last couple of weeks. Junior Dos Santos taking on Ben Rothwell. Gabriel Gonzaga was scheduled to take on Ruslan Magomedov. Unfortunately, Magomedov suffered an injury, and Gonzaga will be getting a new opponent. Again, the card overall, a lot of European and Croatian fighters on the card. Some of these guys I know, some of them I don't. Forward to seeing Dos Santos and Ben Rothwell square off. A lot of people are saying that this may be a title contender match. We'll see what happens. I mean, Rothwell has been making a strong case over the last couple of months. I think with a win over the always dangerous Junior Dos Santos will definitely cement him as the next contender in the heavyweight division. But again, Dos Santos is a guy that can come in there and put your lights out like that in the blink of an eye. So who knows? Either way, somebody's definitely going to sleep in that match. Mortis says, if GSP comes back, GSP versus Anderson. People have been waiting for that fight for a while anyway, but he probably won't come back. You know what the thing is, Mortis? GSP was at the UFC 196 card, and there have been rumors that he did meet with Dana White, and he was looking at fighting at UFC 200, whether it's because he needs money or because he misses the sport. I got to agree. I think the fight that fans are going to want to see are him and Anderson Silva more than anything. I mean, like I said, him and Nate Diaz, GSP and Nate Diaz, GSP and most of these guys. I mean, even if you were to do GSP and Robbie Lawler, which is a fucking terrible idea. Terrible. The fact is that, GSP is still a draw, and I think a fight with him and Anderson Silva is still a fight that's on many people's radar, including yours truly. I would tune in to see that fight in a heartbeat, only because you're talking about two legends. Any way you slice it, whether you love GSP or you hate him, or you love Anderson Silva or you don't, the fact is that the contributions these guys have brought to the sport cannot be ignored. And we've all wondered it, all of us. We've all said, who is the best pound for pound fighter on the planet? And yes, you can make cases for all the current champions, but I'm talking about the guys that have been staples of the UFC. Like when you talk about the sport 10 years from now, and you talk about that list of top 10 fighters in the UFC, GSP and Anderson Silva are some of the first, are probably the first two names that come to mind, along legends, like Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, it's a fight I'd love to see. I would be pumped to see that fight. That's for sure. Val says GSP would lay and prey on Anderson Silva. You know what it is, man? I would really like to think that, but we don't even know what GSP's been doing while he's been off. I mean, I've seen him doing a lot of gymnastics. He likes to put up a lot of gymnastics videos, but he was working the boxing with Freddie Roach. His hands were pretty good at that time. Obviously, not on the caliber of any of a boxer, but definitely solid. That's for sure. I mean, you're talking about a guy who broke Josh Koscheck's orbital bone with just a jab. Something to definitely keep in mind. That's for sure. As I mentioned, JDS and Ben Rothwell are scheduled to square off at UFC Fight Night 86, but UFC heavyweight champion Fabricio Verdum will be squaring off against Stipe Miocic at UFC 198 May 14th. That's happening in Brazil. Obviously, we were expecting the return of Cain Velasquez from the back surgery, but it has, his recovery is still in progress. So Stipe will get the opportunity and square off against Fabricio Verdum. Vitor Belfort is the co-main facing Ronaldo Jacare Souza. Again, a very solid fight, that's for sure. Matt Brown, Damian Maia, Patrick Cummins is going to be taking on Antonio Rogerio Nogueira. Nate Marquardt is also on that card. Yancy Medeiros is on that card. Again, solid card, UFC 198. Emanating from Brazil. Verdum and Stipe, very solid fight. I think that that's one of those fights that's a coin flip. From the ground perspective, obviously Fabricio Verdum has the upper hand, but Stipe, in terms of stand-up, his stand-up is very solid, very powerful, has knockout power, and I'm sure that Cain is going to get an opportunity in the future. I'd love to see Cain get in there and mix it up with Verdum and, get revenge for that really, really lopsided loss that he took against Verdum a while back. But unfortunately, obviously, Cain is not the most durable dude. I mean, the injuries that he sustained, and they're just constantly coming up, makes him a fighter that you got to tread lightly with. You got to put that guy in a padded room if you're going to have him challenge for the belt, because he gets injured at the drop of a hat. Like I said, I'd love to see him in there getting his revenge on JDS and being top of the food chain. I like Cain Velasquez. I think Cain Velasquez is a very marketable fighter, an incredible athlete, but again, just a guy that's so injury prone as of late. It's tough to want to put him in that high profile position. We'll see what happens. I mean, you know, we got Cain waiting in the wings. Arlovsky and Overeem are making strong cases to challenge for the heavyweight title as well. Rothwell and JDS as well. There's definitely contenders and fights to be made. There's also the rumor of, you know, a certain Last Emperor who currently is fighting for Rizin, who may be eligible for free agency after, I believe, one or two more fights. So there is that as well. Fedor in the UFC is going to happen. I'm telling you guys right now, March 10th, 2016, Fedor in the UFC will happen. It's not a matter of if, more so a matter of when. Val says Vitor is going to go to Japan and get stem cells injected into him to dodge doping tests. Well played, sir. Well played. So we've covered UFC 198. We've covered Fight Night. Obviously, UFC 199 has a couple of fights already announced. We got Luke Rockhold defending his middleweight title against Chris Weidman, and the rematch between Dominic Cruz and Uriah Faber. Of course, they will be meeting for the third time. That's going down June 4th, and that's big, man. That's a solid. Those are two solid title fights going into UFC 199. Rockhold and Weidman, obviously, there's a lot on the line there. Obviously, Weidman with trying to get revenge for the loss. Rockhold trying to cement his legacy as middleweight champion and trying to also get the most high-profile fights possible. I'm shocked that they waited to do this fight at 199 and not for 200, but we shall see what happens. But Cruz and Uriah Faber, even though Dominic Cruz and TJ Dillashaw would have been good in terms of a rematch, there's too much history, there's too much beef, and there's too much of a great story between Dominic Cruz and Uriah Faber for you not to let those guys go one more time. I mean, I think this is going to be the last opportunity for Uriah Faber to win some gold. He's not getting any younger. Not to take anything away from Faber. Faber's an incredible athlete, incredibly marketable, extremely business savvy. But I think that this is going to be the last opportunity for him, especially in terms of the animosity between him and Dominic Cruz being a selling point. It's something that's always been there. It's something that will definitely continue to draw. But if Faber doesn't win this time out, I think it might be, we may start seeing the end of the line for the California Kid. Again, UFC 199 goes down June 4th in Los Angeles. So it's not often that I get some what the fuck MMA news, but it's definitely happening this week. Definitely happening this. As Fedor goes to the UFC, Randy Couture comes out of retirement. Hey, it could happen. Fedor versus Couture, 9 years in the making. You know what the funny thing is? That would have happened if Randy and the UFC didn't have such a huge fallout. I mean, that's not to say that money can't fix everything. It can, but, there was a lot of stuff that was said, a lot of issues between The Natural and Dana White. I don't know. I mean, it could happen, but it would be tough, man. I mean, I'd still love to see that. That's a fight we've talked about. Hell, that was the cover of EA Sports MMA when it first came out. Obviously, Randy Couture in there with Fedor. Who knows, man? I'd love to see it, but we're just going to have to take a wait-and-see approach. Anyway, as I was saying, what the fuck MMA news for this week? You guys won't believe this. Wanderlei Silva, who many of you know signed a contract with Bellator, has signed a contract with Rizin MMA and will be fighting on the April 17th show in Nagoya, Japan. Okay, seems pretty normal, right? Rizin announced that they have signed Silva to a multi-year promotional contract, and he will fight, get this, in a special grappling tag match with a partner to be determined, and he will be squaring off against Kazushi Sakuraba and Hideo Tokoro. The rules for the tag match have not been announced yet, but it is a tag team special grappling match. It's listen, I'm a huge Wanderlei Silva fan. His issues with the commission obviously were huge and led to his departure from the UFC. We know that Bellator already signed him to a deal, but to go to Japan and do this tag team grappling match, you're talking about one of the scariest guys in MMA going and doing freak show matches in Japan. I don't know, man. I mean, like I said, Wanderlei signed a contract with Bellator. He can fight in Japan, obviously, since it's outside of the jurisdiction of the Association of Boxing Commissions. And the 3-year suspension by the Nevada State Athletic Commission will not be impacted. But seriously, going to Japan and participating in tag team grappling, I don't even know what to say to that. It is fucking crazy. That's for sure. The next bit of news, I mean, we've heard about mixed martial artists being involved in Dancing with the Stars, Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, but to hear an active UFC fighter participating in the show is a little weird. TV Line reported that for season 22 of ABC's Dancing with the Stars, Paige Van Zandt will be heading in Dancing with the Stars, obviously joining the likes of Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture. I don't know what to say to that. I mean, Paige Van Zandt is a promising talent, even though she was dispatched rather viciously by Rose Namajunas. Doesn't mean that she still does not have a viable stock, doesn't have viable stock in the UFC. I think, she has a lot of potential, but I think she got too much too soon. Again, the marketing machine putting all their eggs in one basket. Dancing with the Stars. I mean, it is what it is. Don't know when that season is supposed to start, but if you guys are interested in that, I will give you guys a premiere date as soon as I get it. All right, last 2 bits of MMA news to wrap things up. As you guys remember, a couple of weeks back, I said that Chris Leben was coming out of retirement to fight for Bellator. Unfortunately, that comeback has been derailed due to a severe medical condition that was discovered that had him receiving 18% of the normal blood flow to only, well, let me rephrase that. He was only receiving 18% of blood flow to his heart, which is insane. He signed with Bellator in February in the hopes of returning to the cage this spring after retiring in 2013. He underwent some physicals to get ready for that comeback and failed several EKG tests, which led to the abnormality in the left ventricle of his heart. They're estimating, as I said, that the blood flow through the heart is only 18% of what is considered normal. Obviously, they gave him a bunch of drugs, and, they wanted to try and work on getting him on a managed care plan to avoid any sort of, according to what the doctor and Chris Leben's team said, a catastrophic cardiac event. As of right now, the options that they're looking at is possibly a heart transplant or maybe maintaining it with medication and a healthy diet. Definitely a tough break for Chris Leben. Leben, of course, longtime MMA veteran, going all the way back to the original Ultimate Fighter, a brawler, a guy who will go out there and bleed for anyone. Also the guy that pretty much welcomed Anderson Silva to the UFC with his face. But Leben was always a wild guy to watch fight, very exciting, right up there with Diego Sanchez. The guys, he falls into that genre, the just bleed fighters, the guys that don't give a shit, go out there and just get the shit kicked out of them. They win, they lose, but it's always a sight to see. Very disheartened to hear that. I mean, hopefully, it doesn't turn into something more fortunate. I mean, Leben definitely was looking forward to coming back. A lot of people were saying that, he was definitely going to do something big in Bellator. I mean, considering that it was a, kind of a reboot for his career, unfortunately derailed due to health issues. Definitely wish Chris Leben a speedy recovery. Hopefully with medication, he can live a long life. All right, so last bit of MMA news to wrap things up involves WWE's Mauro Ranallo, who many of you know as the voice of mixed martial arts for Strikeforce, also the voice of New Japan Pro Wrestling and countless other promotions, has another job to add to his busy schedule. Access TV, which many of you know is the network that broadcasts Inside MMA, announced that Mauro Ranallo will join Inside MMA as the new host of the show alongside the legendary Boss Rutan. Kenny Rice will go and work. He's going to be working in the field now, and Mauro and Boss will be the hosts of Inside MMA. This is not going to impact Mauro's commitments to WWE, as SmackDown is taped on Tuesdays, and Inside MMA has a completely different broadcasting schedule. Definitely really cool to hear that. I think Mauro Ranallo is a great addition to the team. I think he has great chemistry with Boss. And as I said, this will not impact his work on SmackDown. He will be joining Inside MMA on the March 25th edition of the show. So kudos and congrats to Mauro on the new gig. Definitely love his work on SmackDown and looking forward to seeing him and Boss mix it up on Inside MMA. With that bit of news, we are going to bring this week's MMA segment to a close. Definitely running a little late this week. But we're going to shift gears and we're going to jump right into this week's wrestling news. Booker T, take it away. All right, so I want to talk about Raw this week. Raw was very interesting. Obviously, they were using it to build towards WWE Roadblock, which goes down this Saturday on the WWE Network. There were a couple of things that I felt were right about the broadcast. There were a couple of things that I did not like about the broadcast. But let's get into some of the positives first before we get into the negatives, which I'm sure many of you are looking forward to. We had Shane O'Mac back on this week. Good promo work between him and Vince. I think there was definitely a lot of great banter between father and son. Vince is always going to step his game up on the road to WrestleMania, and Shane McMahon definitely looks as he hasn't lost a beat. Looked in good shape. Being in Chicago definitely helped. The segment was closed out with some security guys being sent to remove Shane from the ring. Shane McMahon worked some strikes in there and dispatched the security guards. Definitely feel that the timing could have been better in that segment, but I think that the mic work itself was incredibly stellar. Definitely looking forward to seeing what Shane McMahon is bringing to WrestleMania. Like I said, he looked in great shape. He's continuing to put up videos on social media as he trains for his match. I think it's going to be one of those situations where the match between Shane and The Undertaker is going to be either very, very memorable or a match that you and I and many others are just going to want to forget. That's for damn sure. But again, I felt that the promo work definitely was good to see between Vince and Shane. Another high note, Adrian Neville once again in a match with Kevin Owens. A great match that was pretty much cemented as a match that many of us will never forget because it saw the return of Sami Zayn to Raw. Again, really great matches between Owens and Neville, which obviously we know is going to be the case. He was going to go and attack Neville after the match, and of course Sami Zayn came out. Crowd went fucking bananas, and there was definitely just great storytelling there, masterful. I felt that everything about the match was really good. And to see Sami Zayn back on Raw and the possibility of us seeing maybe Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens at WrestleMania was definitely going to be something that I'm going to be looking forward to. That's for sure. I gotta switch gears a little bit and talk about something that really, really bugged me, and that's Brie Bella's match with Summer Rae. Again, Summer Rae comes up from NXT. Everybody talks that Summer Rae is a good wrestler, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what it was, but Brie Bella is fucking kryptonite out there. On top of the fact that Lana comes out like, a chick that bought all her clothes on Junction Boulevard, New York reference, and she comes out there, attacks Brie Bella, and the crowd goes mild. Nobody gives a shit. There's a couple of reasons why that is. You had the opportunity to do so much with Lana, but the minute that you made her the focal point, the crux for a feuds between Rusev and countless superstars, or Dolph Ziggler and countless superstars, it really watered down her character. Here you had this powerful manager that would come out, had the crowd in the palm of her hand, was, capable of just delivering nuclear level heat when she came out, relegated to being an object again, or relegated to being fodder again. And the issue with that is that we're coming from matches with divas like Charlotte or Sasha Banks or Becky Lynch or Bayley. We're going down that road. Even Naomi to a point. Really solid matches, and you're putting Lana in this situation. We don't know what type of ring experience she has, but the fact that you're building up a match between her and Brie Bella, who by far, in my opinion, is one of the worst wrestlers on the main roster, just shows how directionless they are when it comes to the overall scope of the women's division. Outside of Sasha, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch, creative has no clue what the fuck to do with the rest of the women's roster, the main women's roster. I'm serious. I mean, again, Lana, pretty, easy on the eyes, solid manager, unknown in terms of wrestling, has a tremendous upside in terms of just being a manager. If you're doing something with the League of Nations where you're looking for, the European Four Horsemen, if you want to go that route, she could play that Miss Elizabeth type role. She could play that the role like woman in the Four Horsemen. I think the League of Nations as a stable is not terrible. They are workable. There is some stuff you can do with them as a faction. The problem is that once again, you put them together and you really had no clear direction. 1 minute they're working for the Authority, 1 minute they're not. 1 minute they're, trying to take out John Cena, then they're trying to take out Kalisto. Now they're feuding with the New Day, which obviously is leading to a New Day face turn. But the fact remains that when you look at what you're doing with characters like Lana, who are integral to the group, because I'm serious, if you're going to do anything with the League of Nations, Lana should be part of it. The fact is that, it's just definitely not one of the better moments on Raw. It did nothing to make Brie Bella look good. It didn't make Lana look any better. And all it did was build up a match that none of us are really giving a shit about. And I'm being honest. Another one of the high points on Raw was Dean fucking Ambrose. Dean Ambrose has stepped it up over the last couple of weeks, delivering not only stellar mic work, but also working very, very well with Triple H. Definitely has to make management very, very nervous that the crowd is responding so well to Ambrose, even though Roman Reigns obviously is the chosen one in this scenario. For those of you that have been questioning Roman Reigns' broken nose, it turns out that he had to actually have surgery for a deviated septum, and that they used the opportunity to quote-unquote break his nose as a way to write him off so that he can have the surgery done on the deviated septum, according to numerous websites that have been reporting that. Again, not 100% sure that's the case, but, I mean, I've seen instances where they use real, quote unquote, real injuries to mask superstars taking time off to address certain procedures, whatever they may be. So who knows if that's the case? But in any event, Dean Ambrose has taken the opportunity presented to him, and he has ran with it. In terms of just having great mic work with Triple H, he's definitely been bringing a lot of really good physicality to the narrative. I think the match between him and Triple H at Roadblock is going to be a memorable match. I think it's an opportunity for Dean Ambrose to showcase that he belongs in the main event. And I think the build-up for this match and how this match is going to play out is going to really raise Dean Ambrose's stock value in the company. I think it's something that is definitely a good thing for Ambrose. What they do with him after that remains to be seen. Another thing I wanted to throw out there, definitely a high point, Naomi and Tamina taking on Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch. I definitely feel Banks and Lynch, as always, great chemistry. Naomi's just missing that little something to bring her character together. As for Tamina, point of redemption, Tamina's in a situation where she's got to either be in bodyguard duty, or you have to send her down to NXT to reassess and repackage her character. I mean, if you can send Eva Marie down there, who needs all the help she can get, you can send Tamina down there. Tamina needs work. Tamina cannot work a decent match to save her life, and it's terrible to see. I mean, you're talking about the daughter of a Hall of Famer and Jimmy Superfly Snuka, an incredible athlete because she has a great presence about her. The problem is, and I've said this on countless shows, that she's a product of the old guard. And because of that, her wrestling is just shit. You can pair her with whoever, but if that wrestling isn't, if she can't even get the basics down, it just doesn't work. It really doesn't. I just feel that Tamina would be better served going down to NXT, maybe for 6 months or more, maybe getting a run with the NXT Women's title, just doing something to build up her character. You could send her down there and call up one of the divas in NXT, but I think Tamina needs to go down there and work on her craft, because it's not her fault. It's one of those situations where she just came up out of a system that was flawed, and now that there's a better system in place, it's taking wrestlers like her, Brie Bella, and so many others, and just exposing all their weaknesses. The other high point from Monday night's broadcast was Chris Jericho's heel turn on AJ Styles. Many people were saying that it was done too quickly, that you didn't give Y2 AJ a chance to catch on. But I'll be honest. AJ Styles and Chris Jericho had way too many great matches to put them in some makeshift tag team that wasn't going to get the titles. I hate to say it, they weren't going to get the titles only because you're going to turn the New Day, and the New Day are going to be working a program with the League of Nations. Jericho's heel turn is something you can expect. I think that the rationale behind it was really good. I think that there was still some jealousy there, which they did a good job of acknowledging in the post-match interview. And who knows? I think this is going to lead to maybe Chris Jericho and AJ Styles at WrestleMania. And if that is going to be the case, I think it is a great stage for Jericho and for AJ. And I think it's an opportunity for AJ to really step up to that next level. And if anybody can help him break that, get up to that next level, it's definitely Chris Jericho. And of course, there's still, the looming possibility of Bulletproof, or WWE's version of the Bullet Club, aligning with AJ Styles as well. There's always that. And the possibility to the main roster alongside Guns case. But I had no problem with the Chris Jericho heel turn. Like I said, it was well done. Chris Jericho is a very vain, very, a character that's very proud. And the fact that he's been overshadowed by the quote unquote young rookie is a nice bit of storytelling. I think that if you give those guys 20 minutes, 25 minutes on the grandest stage of them all, we're gonna get something special. So I had no problem with it, none whatsoever. Slick says the smart money would be to let Ambrose win Saturday and remake the WrestleMania main event. Unfortunately, what Triple H said in his promo is the 1,000% truth. I'm gonna hold this belt for as long as I want to. Here's the thing, Slick. While I would love to see Ambrose win the belt and square off against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, unless you plan on turning Roman heel, face versus face is not going to work, only because Roman Reigns isn't 100% a face. People just boo the shit out of him. As for Triple H, Triple H is trying to give Roman Reigns his WrestleMania moment. Dethroning the Authority, good triumphing over evil, etc., etc., etc. The only way that I can see that working, Ambrose is definitely a face, dude. Or a tweener at least, but still a face. Ambrose is more of a face than Roman Reigns will ever be, dude. 100%. The only way that your scenario really, really, really works is if Ambrose wins, Reigns turns at WrestleMania and aligns with the Authority, which again, they did it with Rock and Austin, where Austin ended up turning. I could see that. Ambrose says Ambrose is going to get the title, turn heel, and join the Authority at WrestleMania. I don't know, man. You know what it is? Turning heel not turning heel, but aligning Ambrose with the Authority at this stage is just honestly not the move. You're taking a guy who's, a crazy guy. What exactly is the incentive to align him with the Authority? Now, if you look at it from a storyline perspective, there's more to gain for Roman Reigns to align with the Authority than for Ambrose, and I'll tell you why. Before Seth Rollins went on the injured list, Rollins and Reigns and Ambrose were all involved in, they were feuding. Seth Rollins was the golden child, and obviously Reigns and Ambrose were the opponents in this situation. Now, if you want to create a very good narrative, you're going to have Reigns and Ambrose at Mania. Crowd is cheering both guys. Ambrose wins. Roman goes to shake his hand, hugs him. Ambrose is going on the turnbuckle to celebrate, turns around into a Superman punch and a spear. Authority comes out. Reigns holds the title, hands it to Triple H. They shake hands. Game, set, match. Now, in doing that, you create a couple of things. You create a bona fide feud for Seth Rollins when he comes back. By the way, Seth Rollins is 4 months into his rehab and is already working in the ring. Just saying. Not only that, you also create the narrative where Dean Ambrose gets betrayed once again. And that leads to, the betrayal angle. Number 3, it allows Roman Reigns to work with the Authority and build up his persona. Because as a face, Roman Reigns sucks. And it's not all his fault. It's creative as well, and the fact that we as wrestling fans are smart. We know our shit. We're way too savvy, and it's a lot harder to get over on most fans. I mean, some of us are jaded and we hate the shit for the sake of hating it, but some of us, we understand as well. Anyway, Val says, even if Roman turns heel, it's not going to save him from being boring as fuck. This is true, but at least if you put Reigns with the Authority, you're able to hide that weakness that is currently there, and you're able to leverage that into something better. Again, that's not saying that Roman Reigns at any point is going to be better, but I think it's an opportunity to let him work on a different aspect of his character. And again, Ambrose being betrayed is a better story to tell than Reigns being betrayed, because again, Ambrose aligning with the Authority, even though it would be unexpected, it just doesn't feel like a natural progression for his character. If you're going to do anything with Ambrose, it's either you're going to make him a tweener that has no allegiance to anyone, a la Stone Cold Steve Austin, which is honestly the best way to book him, because booking him as a complete and total face, I just feel that the shtick is going to get old very, very quickly, versus booking him as the tweener and putting Roman Reigns in a suit with a little man bun, coming out there, holding the belt, talking real slow, borrowing a little bit of The Rock's, mannerisms, and saying that, I finally realized what Seth was talking about, that, the only way to get ahead is to succeed, is to grow alongside the Authority. They believed in me. They were giving me the opportunities that I was never going to get running around with you, which is a great way to cut a promo on Dean Ambrose, and just a great way to splinter that friendship. And of course, like I said, Rollins can come back and he could be like, hey man, I'm back, blah, blah, blah. And the Authority could be like, yeah, you got to earn your spot. And that can lead to a Rollins face turn, and he can work a program with a face Reigns, with a heel Reigns, and it'll create something different. Not only that, but you're also able to allow Rollins to work as a face and expand that facet of his character as well. Again, this is all armchair booking from yours truly, but I just feel that if we are going to do anything, we're going to turn Roman if we're going to put the belt on Dean. Only if we're going to put the belt on Dean. If you're not going to put the belt on Dean Saturday night, then, Reigns and Triple H at WrestleMania is going to end with Roman Reigns getting his WrestleMania moment. Now, to go with what Val said, they could throw all of us a curveball and turn Ambrose, but I just don't see that happening right now. That's all I'm saying. The other thing I did want to talk about is, and again, this is something I'm just not really a fan of, is what they're doing with Ryback. Obviously, they're trying to build towards a program between Ryback and Kalisto, which I understand. I just feel that Ryback's promos continue to leave a lot to be desired. I think that the motivations behind the promos definitely are interesting, very Goldberg-esque. I just feel that they've damaged Ryback's character so much that it's going to be a long road to him becoming relevant again. I've said it before, Ryback is one of those guys that needs a manager for the time being. Either that, or you need to let him cut more natural promos. When he was talking about reading The Secret and being positive and overcoming adversity, those were really good promos, but that was because it was the real athlete talking. That's what I'm saying. It was the real athlete talking and not, Ryback reading off a cue card. Again, I'm not taking anything away from Ryback. I think that there was, there's still hope for his character. I just feel that his promo work leaves so much to be desired. And, it's interesting because you have a guy that if you book him properly, he can become something really, really special. And again, Ryback, he definitely has certain tools in his arsenal that are capable of getting him to that level. Promo work is not one of them. Ryback looks the part. His wrestling, albeit robotic, definitely is, it fits his character. It really does. Him lumbering around the ring and tossing dudes and hitting dudes with stiff clotheslines, that's a facet of his character that works. I have no problem with that. I just feel that his mic work is so damaged, especially when he's cutting promos that are written for him. And you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference between a promo that he had to memorize and something that came off the cuff, something that came naturally. If you watch Ryback's promos, you're pretty much able to pick and choose quite easily if you listen which promos are more natural, like more free-flowing, and which ones are essentially being read off a fucking cue card. And that's my problem. It's not Ryback the wrestler, it's Ryback the performer. He's got the look, he's got the tools, but the mic work leaves a lot to be desired. He is a guy that needs a manager, even if it's for at least a year, so that he can work on his craft and become a better wrestler. I mean, Taz had Bill Alfonso, and then after you took Bill Alfonso away, Taz was a pretty solid worker on the mic. Now, I'm not saying Ryback is going to be the next Taz, but if you're going to build this guy as your monster, you need to, again, capitalize on his strengths and hide his weaknesses. If you're going to have him go out there and be a bulldozer, a wrecking machine, a big badass, then don't even let him talk. Like, I like that he's been winning and hopping out of the ring and leaving really quick. I think that's definitely good for his character. It adds a little bit of mystery, but don't let him cut promos, please, because they are fucking terrible. And like I said, if you're going to let him cut a promo, let him be himself. Give him an outline and then let him cut a more natural promo. Because what he's been cutting lately is not good. Simple as that. I got to close out with something that I thought was very interesting, and it'll be my last thing with regards to Raw. I liked what they did with Ambrose and Bray Wyatt, where Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family left Ambrose to Triple H. And I like that Triple H had that little face-off with Dean Ambrose. Nice little bit of foreshadowing, or even a little bit of a tease there. I think there's definitely potential to do something good with the Wyatts in that situation. You know, again, like I've said, if you want to, take guys that are anti-authority, anti-establishment, it's the Wyatts. And again, putting them in the quote-unquote henchman role like they did, leaving Ambrose laying for Triple H to beat him up. It was interesting, but I think that the foreshadowing and the exchange between Triple H and Bray Wyatt definitely was something that you could not ignore. I definitely felt that there was a nice subtle touch and a nice way to close things out. Anyway, that's pretty much my breakdown of Raw. Like I said, it wasn't a terrible show, had its fair share of rights and wrongs. Some things I liked, some things I didn't. Anyway, with regards to the wrestling news, I do want to get into a couple of things. First off, Rhyno is running for public office. This is not a joke. This is not a wrestling angle. This is legit. Terry Guerin, aka Rhyno, is running for a seat in a seat on the Michigan House of Representatives in Dearborn. Obviously, there's funny things that can be said about meetings taking place in the House of Representatives and Rhyno goring anybody that opposes him. I mean, we can make all the jokes we want, but I think it's really cool. He's active on NXT and WWE and running for public office. Maybe he'll get elected. I think it's a pretty cool story. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it very, very closely, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see if Rhyno gets elected onto the Michigan House of Representatives. I'll keep you guys posted as to developments with that story. Next bit of news, very, very heartbreaking. Last week I found out that Eiji Ezaki, who many of you may know as Hayabusa from FMW, wrestled in ECW as well. That was my first time that I was exposed to his work. Passed away. He had a subarachnoid hemorrhage. He was 47 years old. Really saddened about the passing of this superstar. I first learned about Hayabusa watching him and Jinsei Shinzaki, who was Hakushi in WWF, square off against Rob Van Dam and Sabu in ECW. I was impressed at the agility, the way the guy looked, his mask, everything about him. Of course, his finisher, the Phoenix Splash, everything about him, which led to me looking for lots of FMW DVDs. I have a ton of them that I ended up picking up at my local Coconuts, which later became FYE. And, I was really excited to see so many matches. and I was heartbroken when he hurt himself in 2001. He slipped off the top rope while attempting a springboard moonsault. I was heartbroken when that happened. He ended up retiring. FMW, as a result, lost steam, folded. He sung, he did some singing. He appeared at a couple of events, including some stuff with Dragon Gate. And it was crazy because last year he was able to stand up and walk to the ring under his own power, which was really cool. He received a ceremonial 10 count, and he reopened FMW, and he put Hideki Takahashi and Choden Senshi, Battle Ranger, in charge of the organization. It was definitely a resurgence for the Flying Phoenix, but alas, he was taken from us wrestling fans due to the subarachnoid hemorrhage. Again, 47 years old. I was really bummed out when I read it. Like I said, I got a ton of FMW DVDs upstairs. I actually was going to bring them down so I can show some of them to you guys. Not play them, but just show how obscure that stuff was. If you want to see some of his matches, do yourselves a favor, go on YouTube. Like I said, punch in Hayabusa versus Jinsei Shinzaki taking on Sabu and Rob Van Dam. Not sure if that match is on the WWE Network. It might be. I know I have that match on an old ECW DVD. And again, an awesome match. Really, really awesome to see Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki mix it up with Rob Van Dam and the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal Sabu in ECW. But again, definitely some other great matches between Hayabusa and many others on countless FMW DVDs. You could probably find them on eBay or look for the matches on YouTube. If there's any matches in particular you want to know about, let me know. I may be able to, send some people some copies so they can check it out. Maybe do some trading. But again, really sad to hear about the passing of Hayabusa. YouTube, check it out, see some of his great matches. I actually think that I wrote way back in the mytakeradio.com days, I believe I wrote a piece on Hayabusa as well, where I was sharing some of my favorite matches. I actually think it may have been a pick 10 on aerial maneuvers as well, and I think I acknowledged the Phoenix Splash on there. I'm going to try and look that up. If that's the case, I will put links to that in the show notes. Of course, the big news item this week is Hulk Hogan and his ongoing lawsuit with Gawker. Lots of testimony, lots of stuff flying back and forth between Hogan and his legal team and Gawker as well, due to Gawker releasing footage of the Hulk Hogan sex tape. Of course, you guys remember that Hulk Hogan had sex with Bubba the Love Sponge's wife and was videotaped in secret. And of course, the videotape was stolen or leaked, depending on who you ask. And Gawker published some video from that. And Hogan, of course, definitely trying to sue Gawker and trying to make sure that that tape does not see the light of day. That situation led to, obviously the destruction of the friendship between Bubba and Hogan, which many of you know. Bubba the Love Sponge was a close friend of Hogan's, going to TNA with Hogan, participating in countless events, etc., etc., etc. I mean, it's a tough situation. I talked about this way back when the story first broke. But if Hulk Hogan was legitimately videotaped without his consent, it just shows what type of a quote unquote friend Bubba the Love Sponge was. But I got to be honest too. I mean, Hogan, your buddy's wife wants to have sex with you, and your buddy is okay with that. Something definitely has to be rotten. You didn't think that was odd. And on top of that, if you were having sex with the guy's wife, did you not think that maybe he might be watching somewhere? I mean, people are into that shit, the cuckolding shit. They're into that. So just a really terrible situation, a destruction of a friendship, a huge violation of privacy, and of course, many, many jokes at Hogan's expense that have been made as of late. But we'll see what happens, man. I know that Hogan, from what I've heard, I believe Bubba the Love Sponge was going to testify and he was going to plead the fifth, which obviously is it shows where Bubba the Love Sponge is where his bread is buttered, so to speak. Many people are saying, and many websites are reporting, that Bubba the Love Sponge has taken the fifth as to not perjure himself, which they're saying he had already done in a previous inquiry. Don't know how legitimate that is, but again, some of the stuff that has been circulating about the Hogan trial, I've been watching it, monitoring it casually, but once I get some more, noteworthy information, I will definitely share it with you guys. Two last news stories to wrap things up. First and foremost, PW Insider reported that WrestleMania 32's magazine got out, and it actually revealed the two remaining WWE Hall of Fame inductees for this year. If you don't want to know and you want to be surprised, definitely fast forward. 3, 2, 1. All right, spoiler time. The section revealed that Jacqueline Moore, Miss Jackie, is going into the WWE Hall of Fame, as is Stan Hansen. Of course, they joined Sting, the Fabulous Freebirds, The Godfather, and the recently announced Big Boss Man as well for the WWE class of 2016. Again, definitely pumped to see Miss Jacqueline go in there. I think she was a very underrated women's performer and, women's wrestler. And I think that she's definitely a welcome addition. Stan Hansen, I mean, you're talking about a guy whose career goes back decades, and he's wrestled and feuded with a who's who of wrestlers, and I think that, it's very cool to see Hansen go in there. Looking forward to seeing those announcements on Raw in the coming weeks, but again, PW Insider is reporting that the two remaining inductees are Jacqueline Moore and Stan Hansen. All right. To wrap things up, of course, we got WWE Roadblock this weekend. As of right now, the matches on deck are Dean Ambrose and Triple H for the heavyweight title. Sheamus and King Barrett will be taking on the New Day tag team title match. The NXT tag team titles will be up for grabs as Enzo and Colin Cassidy will take on Dash and Dawson. And Brock Lesnar is squaring off against Bray Wyatt. That's going to be 8 p.m. on the WWE Network. Not sure if they're going to add any additional matches on SmackDown this week, but as of right now, the matches are Ambrose and Triple H for the World Heavyweight title. The tag team titles are on the line with the League of Nations and the New Day, and the NXT tag team titles with Dash and Dawson taking on Colin Cassidy and Enzo Amore, and like I said, Brock Lesnar and Bray Wyatt. I'm going to throw out some picks. Lesnar and Wyatt, as much as I would like Bray Wyatt to get over on the Beast, I definitely feel that Brock Lesnar will be the victor. Not sure what this leads to with Brock Lesnar and WrestleMania. Perhaps a rematch. Who knows? Maybe a tag match against the Wyatt family. But I am looking forward to seeing the Beast and Bray Wyatt mix it up. I think there's the potential to have a pretty solid match for both performers. Definitely a match, but I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach with regards to the bigger picture. My pick, like NXT Tag Team title match, Enzo Amore, Colin Cassidy taking on Dash and Dawson. I really like Dash and Dawson in terms of just being a throwback tag team in a similar style to the Brain Busters, and it really works. They tell a really good story in there. They have great tag team offense. But I think this is going to be the opportunity for Enzo and Big Cass to get over and win the belts. I think it's a great opportunity for them to use the title win as a springboard to the main roster. I think Enzo is an incredible performer in terms of his mic work, and Colin Cassidy definitely has a bright future, not only in tag team action, but also as a singles competitor. I am going with new champs on this one, Enzo and Big Cass winning the belts at WWE Roadblock. The tag team titles, the match between the New Day and the League of Nations, which is going to be Sheamus and King Barrett. While I think it would be cool to do the upset and have the League of Nations steal the belts, I think that the match is going to end in controversy and is obviously going to lead to a rematch with the New Day at WrestleMania. and probably a New Day face turn when those guys come out for that match at WrestleMania when it comes up. We shall see what happens, but as of right now, I am going with the New Day retaining and possibly setting up a rematch at Mania. Lastly, World Heavyweight title match, Dean Ambrose, Triple H. As much as I would love Dean Ambrose to be to play spoiler and win the title and go on to face his brother Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, I think we are going with the proverbial WrestleMania moment. We're going to give Roman Reigns the confetti and the pyro, and we're going to dethrone the Authority with Shane O'Mac defeating The Undertaker and Roman Reigns capturing the belt from Triple H. It is a good way to take the power from the Authority as a whole and usher in a new era in the WWE. We'll see if that's the case, but I definitely see Triple H walking out of Roadblock still champion. All right. Those picks are going to wrap up the wrestling segment for this week. I've given you my take on MMA and wrestling on this episode of My Take Radio. I would always love to hear yours. Feel free to hit us up on social media. You can find My Take Radio on Twitter at My Take Radio. You can also find RageWorks on Twitter as well, Rage_Works. You can become a fan on our RageWorks fan page, facebook.com/official RageWorks. You can also find RageWorks on Snapchat, Instagram, Pinterest, and many other social media outlets. Feel free to reach out, hit us up. Always love to talk wrestling, MMA, gaming, movies with the listeners and fans, so definitely feel free to reach out. If you are interested in being a guest on a future episode of My Take Radio, you can email me, mtrhost@mytakeradio.com or rich@rageworks.net. You can also use the Contact Us form on rageworks.net as well. If you have any feedback, questions, or concerns, you can always utilize either one of those emails or the contact form on rageworks.net. If you'd like to advertise on My Take Radio or any of our other shows on the RageWorks network, you can fill out the form on rageworks.net and let us know what type of advertising you are looking for, whether it's on air, on the site, etc. Feel free to reach out via that medium. Last but not least, this episode and previous episodes are available on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio and audio format. Be on the lookout for our debut on Google Play and Spotify, which is happening sooner rather than later. Of course, once I get an official start date for that stuff, I will let you guys know. Video versions of this show are available in 24 to 48 hours, and you can find them on YouTube, on our two YouTube channels, My Take Radio TV and Official RageWorks. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. My Take Radio's YouTube channel, My Take Radio TV, is only MTR episodes, and the RageWorks YouTube channel is all of our event coverage, episodes of MTR, unboxings, reviews, etc. So if you're a fan of all of that extra content, definitely subscribe to our RageWorks channel. All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning into this MMA and wrestling edition of MTR. I will see you guys for Thursday night's gaming and entertainment edition of the show. And that's going to wrap it up. I will see you guys later. Thank you guys for tuning in. I am out of here. Peace.
That's all, folks.